your chromatography, start by marking the TLC plates coated with silica gel with a pencil. Make sure not to press the pencil too much so as not to scratch off the silica gel coating of the plates. The baseline is drawn. We mark the spots for where we will put our samples on the plates. Make sure to mark each spot with the sample name or a short name. We will have 5 samples, 1 mixture, and 2 unknowns. So we will be using 2 plates with 4 marks on each of them. If necessary, wait until the wet spot has disappeared or dried, and then release more of your sample into the same spot. Spot all of your samples into your marks in the same way. Once all of your samples are spotted and dried, you will fill some of your running solvent into a jar. Make sure to close the cap of the jar while you're waiting to put your TLC plates into the jar so as not to lose solvent to evaporation. Next, put your TLC plates into the jar gently. Make sure not to touch the surface of the silica-coated surface of the TLC plates with your hand or anything else so as not to scratch any of the silica coating. Once you put the TLC plates into the jar, you will see the solvent starts moving on the TLC plate. You will be able to observe this with your naked eye as it will wet the surface while it's moving upwards. You will let your solvent run on the TLC plate until there is 0.5 to 1 centimeters of distance between the solvent front and the top of the TLC plate. Make sure not to let the solvent run over the TLC plate so as not to lose your solvent front. If you lose your solvent front, you will not be able to make any calculations since you will not be able to mark it on your plate. Make sure to close the cap of your jar after you put the TLC plates in and not to move the jar after you start the TLC running. You will not be able to mark any of your spots. Once you're finished running your solvent on your TLC plate, gently open the cap of your jar and take your TLC plates out of your solvent system. Before the solvent on your TLC plate dries off, quickly mark the 2 ends of your solvent front with a pencil. Once your TLC plates are dried completely, you can check them under UV light. Make sure when you're using the lamp to click on the short wave option. Once put under short wave UV lamp, you will be able to see your samples as pink dots on green looking silica gel. Second part of the experiment, we are going to be extracting chlorophyll A and B from spinach leaves. For this, start by weighing one spinach leaf or half a spinach leaf depending on the leaf. Continue to mince the leaf with your hand as much as possible and then put it at the bottom of your test tube with the help of a spatula. And then weigh out some anhydrous magnesium sulfate and some sand in order to further grind up the spinach leaf. Add these to the test tube and then with the help of a spatula continue to grind the leaves. As you know, magnesium sulfate is used as a drying agent and sand as an abrasive agent to tear the leaves in this experiment. After you grind up the leaves as much as you can, add 2 milliliters of acetone into the test tube and cover it with parafilm so as not to evaporate the acetone while waiting. If necessary, you may add a little bit more acetone into the test tube. Then leave the covered test tube to waiting for approximately 5 minutes so as to extract the chlorophyll into the liquid portion of the mixture. You will see that the liquid portion will start to become green. You will need to wait until you see a darker shade of green before you can start the experiment. Once your liquid is green enough, you can start the experiment by spotting your chlorophyll extract on your TLC plate. Make sure to mark the TLC plate beforehand, like in the first part of the experiment. Take out one capillary tube, dip it into your liquid part to suck some of the liquid into the capillary tube, and then press it onto the surface of your TLC plate on the mark that you have put on previously. You will have to mark this spot at least 3 times to get good visible separation on your TLC plate. Make sure to let the spot dry before you spot it again. After you have spotted a few times, put your TLC plate inside your solvent system. Make sure you're using the correct solvent system for the second part. For the second part, your spots and separation of your spots will be visible to naked eye rather than under UV. Once your solvent front reaches to the top, leaving 0.5 to 1 centimeters of distance, you can take your plate out like in the first part and mark your solvent front before your solvent dries. For the second part, you will have to mark your spots before they disappear, since their color will fade away in time. Unlike in the first part, where your spots will always remain visible under UV light. In order to mark your spots, you will have to use a pencil again and then outline all of the spots in the shapes that you see them. Make sure to mark the very midpoint of your spots as well. This is where you will be measuring the distance of the spot from the starting point. In order to record this data, you will have to darken your drawings on the TLC plates. Since you have marked everything now on your plates, you can use a little bit more force to draw on the plates without worrying about scratching the silica coating. We need to darken these spots so that we can see it on the paper when we put the paper on the TLC plates. This is how you collect the TLC data. You would have to draw actual size replica of your TLC plates and every marking on it on a paper as the data collection for thin layer chromatography experiment. Once you draw your actual size replica of your plates on your paper, then you can start measuring the distances of the spots from the starting point, as well as the distance of the solvent front from the starting point. To calculate the RF values, you would have to divide the distance moved by your sample spots over the distance moved by the solvent front. You will have to calculate RF values for all of the spots on your TLC plates. For your mixture, you will have 2 to 3 spots on your plate since it will be a mixture of the analgesics that you have used in this experiment. For your chlorophyll, you will again have multiple spots and you will have to compare those spots to the tables provided in your manual in order to identify what they are. Next, you move on to cleanup. You have to throw out your TLC plates into the glass waste and nowhere else, and then empty your liquid waste into the liquid waste bin marked and placed in the waste hood, and then put any solid waste into the solid waste bin. Make sure to wash all of your glassware with acetone or DI water. Make sure to use acetone as little as possible since it has severe environmental and health effects. Throw away any test tubes that you have rinsed into the glass waste.